Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our channel where we cover everything D&D, including advice for players and guides for game masters.
We upload new videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Well, we're finally at the end of our multiclass tier ranking series for D&D 5th edition, and we've finally arrived at the Wizard. Well, we've touched on basically every class multiclassing into Wizard. Now we're going to be looking at how things go from the Wizard perspective.
Now everybody knows that wizards are fantastic bookkeepers and also pack themselves with world-altering spells. So what are these world-building wizards going to use? Well, that brings us to today's sponsor, World Anvil.
If you're a digital wizard or a dungeon master or game master looking to organize all your notes for your next campaign, or just a creative that is looking to organize all of your world building that you might be doing for a creative writing project, you should really check out World Anvil.
World Anvil is a web-based world building and campaign management platform available online that lets you organize all of your notes for DMing. It allows you to create campaigns and organize your worlds and maps and lore into separate sections and keep some of it for you as a DM, but also give it to your players in ways that they can interact with it and see the world that you're creating.
Just as spellcasters weave the tangled web of magic, you can control all the different plot threads and story ideas that you are brewing up for your own campaigns using World Anvil.
So make sure to check the links below to get in on World Anvil and start creating your unique worlds.
There's also a great discount code that you can use to sign up for their premium subscription as well.
And now back to the Wizard. The Wizard is one of our favorite classes in D&D, and when we look at it for multiclassing, we're going to be ranking it based on how well it pairs with all of the other classes in D&D. Does it gain any benefits from pairing with another multiclass, or is it weaker when we combine it with the other classes? If you want to see a full concept of how we're ranking these multiclass combinations, you can check out the video where we go over that right up over there.
When we look at the multiclass rankings, we often compare how the combination compared to a single class character of the same level. Furthermore, we consider all pillars of play, from combat, exploration, to social interaction, and more. That said, Callie and I have lots of biases, and we have certain ways that we like to play the game that might differ from you. This is why we polled the community to find out what their thoughts were, and we'll be sharing the results from our community rankings at the end of the video.
So with all that, let's get started with the Artificer. When we look at the Artificer, the main thing that stands out to me is this is one of the few classes in the game that also uses intelligence as its spellcasting modifier.
On paper, the Artificer multiclass is everything you could want with multiclassing your wizard. You're going to get a couple extra proficiencies, you're going to continue with intelligence-based spellcasting, and if you kind of do the reverse way of taking Artificer with your first level and then going Wizard from there, you get Constitution saving throw proficiency, which is really, really nice for wizards. However, Artificers are half casters, which means that only half of your Artificer levels are going to count towards your Wizard levels, and of course, it's going to delay access to those higher level, super juicy Wizard spells. That said, there's a lot of cool Artificer subclass features if you're willing to dip in and take at least 3 levels of Artificer, and I think that there's some pretty handy infusions to be had too.
I think that between infusions like the Spell Refueling Ring or the Enhanced Arcane Focus, which are just going to up your spellcasting potential, paired with the fact that depending on the Artificer you pick, you're going to get a sweet suit of armor or a robo-dog that you can bring as a companion or an arcane firearm.
Yeah, it's really tempting to, say, play a conjurer or a transmuter wizard or even an abjurer wizard and have like the battle master's companion as well. It's really tempting to play a transmuter or an abjurer or perhaps even a war wizard and have the companion from the battle master plus a homunculus plus a familiar plus summon creatures or animated objects or all those things that you can add on to that. I think there's some really interesting potential there. Furthermore, it is tempting to play the battle master along with the blade singer so that you can use intelligence as your attack stat when you're wielding a magic weapon.
Yeah, and it's ideas like that that I think actually make the loss of your highest level spells worth it in some instances.
Totally. However, it's still a trade-off, and I think it's actually a very difficult decision. If we imagine a character that takes 3 levels of Artificer to get into Battlemaster, so they can use intelligence for attack and damage rolls with their weapons when they're using a magic weapon, and then they take 6 levels of Bladesinger, so they get the Bladesinger extra attack, so they can make the extra attacks using things like Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade. That's kind of, those are the tentpole features that you want to combine together. That's a 9th level character. That character has access to 3rd level wizard spells, and that character has a 4th level spell slot. But we have to compare that character against a single class Bladesinger who, yes, they can't use their intelligence for attack and damage rolls, but they still can have a good dexterity score. They've only got 1 ability score increase versus 2 ability score increases if you were single classed. And you've got 5th level spells and true 5th level spells, so you can cast spells like Animate Objects, and you have more 4th level spells to cast really, really good Bladesinger spells, whether that's Shadow Blade or Banishment or Conjure Fey. So I'm not saying one is strictly better than the other. I'm saying that my preference is having the 5th level spells as a 9th level character.
I think that the Artificer, in terms of multiclassing potential for the Wizard, offers one of the most compelling arguments for multiclassing the Wizard. And for that, I think I'm going to give it an A.
I think that is very fair. I think the Bladesinger Battlesmith combination is strong, and it's a good character, especially if what you really want to have is that single ability score focus with your character. I don't think that it's stronger than a single class Bladesinger.
And that's why it almost feels like a parallel play rather than an advanced upgrade.
Yeah, I just think that this is one of those clear cases which we're going to see as a recurring theme. Wizards are one of those classes that starts slow, and by the mid game to the late game, they get really, really good. And so the longer you delay access to those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th level spells, I feel the weaker the wizard class becomes. That's the hard choice with the Artificer specifically, is are the benefits that you're getting worth it for your character in giving up those higher level spell slots?
As we move on to the Barbarian, the Rage Mage is a really fun word to say. But you got nothing.
You got nothing.
You got nothing here. Yeah. I want to dig in and analyze this. I have heard arguments out there of what if you just cast spells that don't require concentration, that bolster you and all of that stuff. But at the same time, is it then are we really playing a wizard? If we're talking about being a wizard main, what does 10 levels of wizard and 2 levels of barbarian get us? Not a whole lot that we're really going to use.
I think you can technically use Blade Song while you're raging.
Okay.
I think you could technically do that.
Is that worth it?
I don't think so, because of course, if you're trying to be a Bladesinger barbarian, which again is probably the first thing you're thinking of, you can't even cast cantrips when you're raging. So you can't use the Bladesinger's unique extra attack. You can't cast any wizard spells at all. And I think it's one of those things that's weirdly overshadowed by the fact that if you want to have an awesome thing to do by not casting spells, Tensor's Transformation exists. So a single class wizard can cast Tensor's Transformation on themselves if they don't want to cast spells and start attacking people. Tensor's Transformation is a really good spell, especially for a Bladesinger. I don't think you'd want to go the Barbarian route to get into that.
I think the Wizard and the Barbarian are great companions.
Yeah.
But not great together, and I think I'm going to give them a D.
Yeah. What about the Bard? The Bard and the Wizard both have an appreciation for stories, and a Bard, again, I feel weird bringing up the Bladesinger again when there's so many other things, but Bard does feel like you could pair it with Bladesinger, or you could pair
A swords blade singer?
A swords blade singer.
Sword singer?
A sword singer. There you go. Or you could be a whispers bard illusionist. You could be a glamour bard enchanter. You could be a
Diviner lore?
diviner lore. Yeah. So it seems like there's conceptual combinations that work here, but practically speaking, is this where we want to go with the character mechanically?
So bards are one of my favorite classes in the game. Wizards are one of my favorite
Yes.
classes in the game. But does the bard actually gain any spells that the wizard doesn't have?
Well, with a bard with magical secrets, normally you're going to poach your favorite things from the wizard class list, right?
Yeah.
And there are things that bards love getting from the wizard class list, but again, these often become higher level spells. Like I've played a bard that has taken counterspell and fireball and haste and wall of force using my magical secrets. So with a bard, you can get to like your greatest hits of the wizard spell list just by being a bard on its own.
If you're a wizard, you already have your greatest hits from the wizard spell list.
I think the biggest thing that as a wizard you pick up from the bard spell list right away are things like Fairy Fire and Healing Word.
You get Vicious Mockery.
Vicious Mockery, but again, you have to use Charisma for Vicious Mockery.
Yeah, and like the charisma intelligence character is a fun concept.
Yeah, and I like the idea, like one of the things that could actually be cool is wizards often don't have a lot of ways to use their bonus actions unless they're concentrating on a spell. So having Bardic Inspiration to throw out as a wizard could be neat, but again, it's the charisma investment that really brings that down, and again, the 5 levels to get it back on the short rest. You are also getting expertise with 3 levels in Bard, and you're getting Jack of all trades.
So, Jack of all trades, expertise, Bardic Inspiration, but I think I might give this one a C. I think it's better than a Barbarian.
I feel like you really have to decide what you want to do with this character to really make it work. Because I still don't know. I feel like the reason why you're getting those bard levels is because you want to somehow be more versatile. And wizards are already really, really versatile.
The hard question for me is, if I'm playing a wizard and I take a few levels of bard for those features, why am I not just playing a bard? And if I'm playing a bard and want wizard features, they feel like at no point does the complement make sense for like complementing the other class. It's like, just play that class then.
Yeah. For me, the bard, the wizard, and the paladin are probably my 3 favorite classes in the game.
Yeah.
And
for me, it's sorcerer, bard, and paladin.
Yeah. But I really struggle to mix those 3 in one character. I could see ways that you could put them together, but I just feel like for me conceptually, I would just go the specialized route. Yeah, I'm going to give it a D.
Okay. When we move on to the cleric, I think the cleric actually poses a very interesting option for the wizard.
I agree. There's a classic archetype here, which is the Mystic Theurge, which had support in prior editions of D&D, doesn't really now, but multiclassing wizard and cleric, like the priesthood of Mystra, right? There you go. Those who worship the goddess of magic. I think very immediately we go to the Arcana domain as a possible option. But you could be a Death domain cleric, necromancer. You could be a Tempest domain cleric evoker. You could
Knowledge domain diviner.
Knowledge domain diviner.
I'm going with the divination.
Actually sounds like a really good combo, I think. You could be a Forge domain transmuter.
Yeah.
And I think that you could. I think that the Twilight domain would work really well with illusions, and I think that the Peace domain would work really well with abjuration.
Awesome.
Lots of combos, and of course you could be a War Wizard Blade Singer.
Yeah.
But I think that there's kind of a school and domain match. What's interesting here is these are also the 2 classes that have the most subclasses.
So a lot of cool combos.
A lot of mixing and matching to build thematic combinations.
Now, what I want to say about this multi-class combination, though, is, as usual with Cleric, we've talked a lot in this whole series about this. The best thing that you can probably do is take 1 level of Cleric right off the bat. You get your armor, if you're choosing one of those options, and you get access to the spell list, and then you go the rest of the way wizard. There's a few instances, a few subclasses that would make me want to maybe pick up 2 levels. I'm thinking of like the Tempest Domain.
Yeah, so Tempest Domain so that you can max out that thunder or lightning damage on a big spell. Really get that huge lightning bolt that you want to have out of there. That can be a really cool pickup for damage dealing. I think that having the powers of the Peace Domain or the Twilight Sanctuary, Channel Divinity, there's cool pickups there. The armor thing can be a little bit tricky to juggle because if you're going for the heavy armor, you might need to think about either being a dwarf or investing in your strength score. Not the end of the world. And the 13 wisdom prerequisite isn't too bad to hit. And you can grab cleric cantrips and first level cleric spells that don't care about your wisdom modifier. So I'm thinking you pick up Healing Word, you pick up Guidance, you pick up Bless.
Yeah.
And you've got like just a small little arsenal of spells that augment your wizard spell list. You're not delaying yourself too much. I think it's an A+ dip.
I'm willing to give this an A. I think that as a dip, it's great, but you don't really want to go more than 2 levels.
So another place where we could take 2 levels would be 2 levels of Druid to give us a little bit of wild shaping fun. How does you feel about that?
I mean, wild shaping fun is fun, but we run into, I think, the same problem that we've run into all along with the Druid, and I think the Wizard and the Druid both have this problem. Both the Wizard and the Druid gain more the longer they stay single class.
True.
And so a wizard who wild shapes, are we losing out? We're not really losing out on spell casting.
No, we're not. Could you be a Moon Druid Blade Singer? Can you Blade Song when you're wild shaped?
Can you?
Why do I always go to Blade Singer first? It's because I love the subclass.
I don't know what we're gaining other than wild shape by being a druid, but is wild shape enough to be interesting? Does wild shape give us anything?
I mean, aside from all the utility that wild shape brings,
Couldn't I just be a wizard with polymorph?
well, the utility there, of course, is that you don't have to concentrate on it.
Right.
And so you're combining a bunch of different things, and you're keeping more of your stats the same. And then you're getting like that kind of just general wild shape utility of turning into something small, right? Or if you're a Moon Druid, being a bear singer and being a bear and having like the temporary hit point buffer that the bear things, that's a weird build to me. Colby, what do you think? Aside from like shenaniganery with that, I think it's a no from me.
I mean, you get access to some neat spells, but no, I think like even our wild shape, we're only taking a few levels of druid.
Yeah.
Are we really going to put in enough that it's worthwhile? Like,
No, it's going to scale horribly.
So I think it's a D.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. You do get Healing Word, you do get Guidance, but you can get those from the Cleric dip. I think unless you got something really specific and cheesy in mind. Okay, wait. Spores Druid, 2 levels, Blade Singer, necrotic damage bonus, temporary hit points. That should combine.
You can talk me into a C, maybe.
It still feels very tenuous.
I'll give it a D+.
Is there any other Druid subclass that you could see? Like Stars Druid Diviner. Is that cool?
Wildfire Evoker.
Wildfire Evoker.
I get Fireball on my wild.
It's exactly that point that you made before. It's like you have to take too many levels of Druid before it really becomes interesting. And,
Yeah.
and then you're giving up the Wizard levels in the process, and I just feel that your character's weaker for it.
So D?
Yeah.
But as we move on to Fighter, the Battle Mage, this actually has some gas. And I think that the Fighter, if you take your first couple levels of Fighter and then go the rest Wizard, you're going to get proficiency in Constitution saving throws.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to get Action Surge.
Mm-hmm.
And also access to weapons and armor, maybe a fighting style.
Second Wind. Yeah, a 2-level fighter dip is A+. I think that you could very much argue that depending on when you take those 2 levels of fighter, it might be S tier with your wizard, being able to action surge. Like, let me put it this way. Being able to do one spell that pushes your enemies around or relocates your enemies somehow, whether that is Vortex Warp or Thunder Wave, and then having those enemies now in your Wall of Force or your Cloud Kill or your Force Cage or Wall of Fire. That 1-2 punch as one character is amazing, and I've just seen it win encounters single-handedly. It's great. I think that a fighter Blade Singer, a fighter War Wizard, I think that you could do a weird fighter Abjurer or a fighter Evoker.
Or a fighter Diviner.
Anything. Any of it works.
I also think that there is a case to be made that if you push a little further in fighter and take the Eldritch Knight, you really do get that Gishy character.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's a valid option here, and I think this is overall a great pickup. I think it's an A.
I completely agree with you. I do think that there is a very interesting character build in going a bit deeper into fighter, but then taking 5 to 10 wizard levels. You're not a full-on wizard, but you're a really strong-looking fighter on paper. I do think that if you're looking at like a 20th level character build, Fighter 11, Wizard 9 looks really good on paper.
Technically, that would be a fighter build.
Technically, it would. It's a character that has up to 5th level spells and even has 6th level spell slots that they can upcast with. 3 attacks, action surge. It's a pretty juicy character build. It looks really good even compared to like the classic gishes like the Paladin Sorcerer or the Paladin Warlock or even just a straight up Hexblade or straight up Blade Singer. So it's good. It's good.
What about the monk? The monk is kind of like a fighter, but with their fists. You get key points, you get a few bonus action options.
So we wrote a subclass in Sebastian Crow's Guide to Drakenheim called the Arcane Hand.
It's a half-caster monk.
Yep. Just play that.
Yeah.
Just play that. You know, pick. You can. The PDF is coming soon. You can pick that up, and realize your proper caster monk hybrid.
Now you do get unarmored defense.
Yeah, but it's not going to be as good as just mage armoring. In order for unarmored defense to beat mage armor, you need to have a +3 wisdom modifier.
Okay, but I can't punch and cast spells on the same turn, can I?
No, but you can if you're playing an arcane hand monk. Not to plug our subclass again.
I mean, we made the subclass for a reason, and I think the reason we made that subclass is because this is a D.
Yes, this sucks.
And we wanted a half-caster monk, and so we made one because we couldn't build it in D&D.
It also, like, the ability score prerequisite is not too hard to make. 13 in dexterity, 13 in wisdom, 13 in intelligence. You have to give up a bit of constitution for this. Monk 6, Wizard 6 is probably still stronger than just a flat-out level 12 monk.
Stop. Poor monk.
Right? And I think what's interesting, too, is I think that if you're attacking with a short sword and you're a Blade Singer monk, and you've got 6 levels of both, you actually can flurry of blows. And I think that Blade Song still applies, right? You can replace one of the spells with a cantrip and still go on to the flurry of blows. So it's a cool monk build. Terrible wizard build.
I am going to give this a D.
Yeah.
And I want to go on record and say, if you are hoping to play a monk, you should do it. Monks are great. They're a lot of fun. Have fun playing a monk. Just do it. It's great.
Yeah.
You'll enjoy your time. We rag on it a lot on this channel. But I love monks.
Yeah, but I mean, it really is an example of the weaknesses of the monk because
As we move on to the Paladin, again, we get the cool battle mage. We have a bit of divine, a bit of arcane. Smiting as a Blade Singer?
Yeah. I mean, the only issue is that you got to have the strength and charisma 13.
Yeah.
And that's the price that you pay. So if you have amazing ability scores and you can effortlessly grab 2 levels of Paladin as a Blade Singer, I think it's pretty good. Because, like, that's the one thing that when I've played a Blade Singer that I'm like, oh, I wish I could just dump my spell slots into a Smite. And you can't. You just have... The Blade Singer works by kind of casting a really powerful spell and doesn't really have that spiky smitiness that you get when you play like a Hexblade Paladin. So I miss that, but I still love my Blade Singer.
Now, besides that, though, I don't know if I would really pair Paladin with many of the other wizards and feel like I'm gaining something as a wizard main player.
Okay, you could play an Oath of Redemption Paladin that's an Abjurer.
Yeah, what am I... Is that... Am I gaining anything as an Abjurer, though?
The Oathbreaker Paladin buffs undead, so an Oathbreaker Necromancer.
Okay, well, that sounds awesome.
That does sound awesome.
You've broken your oath and you just got... Wait, you went full...
Yeah, you take 6 levels of Paladin, break your oath, and then become the Lich King. So narratively, it's great. Like, yes.
I want to write a villain.
Yeah.
The fallen Paladin who became the Lich Lord.
Exactly, but you do that as a villain so you can break the rules and you don't have to worry about the ability score mess and like the differences of the spellcasting. Like, yes, would I totally make an NPC that can cast 9th level spells, smite my player characters, and raise the undead? Absolutely. Would that be an intelligence-based character? Absolutely. Is that something that the DM can do? Wonderful, because they can break the rules when they're designing their NPCs however they like, and they can make it work to make a challenging NPC. It's really hard to build that as a player character.
I do think that there's a little bit more than nothing here, and especially with the one build option of the Blade Singer.
Well, no, I think that the Paladin Necromancer thing is actually kind of neat.
Fair. C? I think it's a C.
So 6 levels of Paladin and 14 levels of Wizard mean that you actually still have 9th level spell slots. You just can't cast 8th and 9th level spells. And you've got tons of 5th level spell slots for smiting.
Yeah, so you got a lot more smiting. You
raise a lot of undead.
It's a C because I don't think it's optimal. I think that you are...
And you really have to still have your charisma modifier to buff the undead. But just fair to mention, just in fairness, Paladin 6, Wizard 14, you can then use all of those 9th and 8th level spell slots for Animate Dead and for upcasting Animate Dead and Create Undead to reassert control over powerful undead creatures.
That sounds like a problem at the table. But that's just... I think necromancers are just a problem at the table anyway.
But so. I think that would... Like, that could be strong. It could be strong.
Are you going to give it higher than a C?
Okay, well, we discussed 2 viable builds here. Paladin Necromancer, Blade Singer, just any Paladin. Is that enough to give it a... It's enough for me to give it a C.
I'm giving it a C.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll give it a C.
All right.
Yeah.
As we move on to the Ranger, I don't know what we would be gaining from taking Ranger levels.
No.
We didn't really like the Druid much.
And the ability score prerequisites are the same as for the Monk.
And we gain far less than we do from a fighter. We don't have the cool action surge or any of those. We do gain a fighting style.
Again, if you want to do the martial wizard, there's other ways to do it. This isn't the class that we're going to jump into for that.
No, I feel like Ranger is very specific in its intention, and it is a martial class, but it's not the multi-classing martial class.
Aragorn and Gandalf worked really well together, but you don't want to try to be Aragorn.
Aragolf.
Aragolf?
So Aragolf gets a D for me.
Or is it
Gandagorn?
Gandagorn the Wizard Ranger.
So Gandagorn gets a D.
Yeah.
Aragolf also gets a D.
Yeah, sorry guys. Tolkien's rejects.
Tolkien tried to write Gandalgor, and he was like... Yeah,
Gandalgorn actually is a great character name, though.
I'm going to make a wizard ranger and name him Gandalgorn just for fun. It's going to be bad. He's going to die.
The rogue, though. Okay, so arcane tricksters. I love arcane tricksters.
Yeah.
I think that this is a wonderful case where, hey, you, Wizard 5, Rogue 5 looks pretty good.
Rogues give us expertise.
Yep.
Rogues give us... We can't sneak attack with spells.
This would be a great arcane detective. Because you get expertise in investigation and perception.
Right.
And then you could get more expertises in like...
History, Arcana.
So your wizard detective, divination wizard, arcane trickster.
Okay, I like
Wizard
investigators.
detective.
You also
I guess the it would be actually taking the actual inquisitive.
Yeah.
But I think personally, because arcane trickster, illusionist, or enchanter feels more natural.
You don't have to be the inquisitive to be an investigator.
Yeah, exactly.
You can build investigators in other ways. You could use inquisitive, but you could also just play arcane trickster to feed into the magical Harry Dresden.
Yeah.
So you also are getting cunning action as a rogue.
And I kind of like cunning action on a wizard. Just being able to disengage as a bonus action feels like that's something that a wizard would like.
Yeah, this is compelling, and I think this is the Harry Dresden archetype because Harry Dresden is sneaky, investigative, good at putting things together, good at like he has all those roguish like skill sets, but then oh no, an ogre is attacking him, he throws a fireball.
So we're gonna give this H tier for Harry Dresden.
Harry Dresden,
not D tier. I think it's a solid B.
Harry Dresden Detective has every one of the letters in it except B.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I don't know where we're going with that one.
I don't know.
You might have to cut this later, Kelly. Yeah.
I might also be wrong on that. I didn't really think too hard about it, but I'm giving it a B.
Yeah, I think it's a solid B. You can't sneak attack with most spells. But as the Arcane Trickster shows, you can sneak attack on a Booming Blade or a Green Flame Blade. So I think that there's a lot of build options here. You could go ahead with the Blade Singer Rogue. That could be cool too.
And that way you get more sneak attacks.
So there's lots of subclass combinations. An Assassin Illusionist. Yeah, I think I honestly think that there's a lot of different ways to build these characters. It's a very focused detective infiltrator focus.
Yeah.
Right? You're not really going to be necessarily the biggest in control, but I like it.
I like it. I like it as an investigative infiltrator. As we move on to the Sorcerer, it's interesting because these are both they're kind of butting heads most of the time.
Well, the Wizard and the Sorcerer are often put in opposition to one another because it's the studious magician versus the natural talent.
Yeah.
I think there's a phrase that goes that like talent is actually a pursued and practiced interest.
Yeah.
So very few people can actually say that they are naturally talented at anything. Most of the most exceptional individuals have not necessarily learned in the traditional way, but they have learned through experience or practice or self-taught things. So the Wizard and the Sorcerer's philosophies, I think, are less opposed than one might actually think.
And I do think that if we are playing a Wizard main, you know what I would love on my Wizard? Metamagic.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a feat that we can take, but that feat doesn't let us transfer spell slots into more sorcery points.
Exactly.
And I think that there's an argument here that you take a few levels of Sorcerer and that feat.
Well, the real high-level thing is to just take 17 levels of Wizard and then take 3 levels of Sorcerer.
If we're playing a campaign that goes beyond level 20?
Yes. But the way that that's kind of phrased is that you're still going to get your 9th level spells, so you're still going to get your wishes and your time stops and your shape changes and your meteor swarms. But now we're tacking on, at the very end, these 3 levels of Sorcerer so that we can get 2 metamagic options and the ability to convert those lower level spell slots into more sorcery points that we can then spend on quickening spells and tastefully twinning a couple spells. And if we did grab Metamagic Adept along the way, We could also still have subtle spell or extend spell or whatever else we so you can actually end up with a wizard that has 4 different meta magic options and innately has 5 sorcery points, and you can do a lot with 5 sorcery points.
I I think that because meta magic is so valuable, and can augment wizard spellcasting in a lot of really awesome ways, I think this is the tricky thing. If we're looking at level 20 play and talking about that idea that you had, it might be A tier.
I think Wizard 17, Sorcerer 3 is stronger than Wizard 20.
But what if we look at all subclasses, the whole game? Most people are not playing there.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Is it a C? Because we still could take meta magic earlier on.
I want to be fair to it by saying that I think that it is viable to do this early. So I wouldn't give it a C. I think that I'm willing to give the Sorcerer a B across all levels, but you have to take that 3 levels of Sorcerer to get the meta magic first and then grab meta magic adept. It's still pretty weak. Like Sorcerer 3, Wizard 7 actually is not terrible. I think that Sorcerer 3, Wizard 5, that's when it's those lower levels where I start going, oh.
So C or B?
Okay. Under level 5, it's D. Between level 5 and between level 10, it's like C+, maybe going into B. Between levels 11 and 16, it's like A to B. And then once you're level 17, it's S. It goes through the alphabet.
I'm going to give it a C. I feel like for majority of the play of most campaigns, you're not that strong with this build.
Yes, and it's then in that respect, it's better to just grab meta magic adept so you can at least quicken a spell once per day.
Yeah.
But it's so strong at high levels.
Well, when you run a campaign that takes me to level 20 and I can play this character, then I'll let you know.
Okay. Will do.
What are you giving it?
I'm going to give it a B.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we move on to Warlocks, I think that...
Hexblade Blade Singer. Just getting it out of the way now.
Hexblade Singer.
Hexblade Singer. Yeah, Hexblade Singer.
Things I like about the Warlock attached to the Wizard is invocations might be handy.
I wish you could Eldritch Blast with intelligence. I wish there was a way in the game to get that.
Yeah, after I said invocations might be handy, I can't think of another thing that is useful here. And
okay. Is it so much to ask? I just want the ability to, in a really easy way, Eldritch Blast a couple enemies to forceful blast them into a nice little clump so that I can trap them in a wall of force.
Now, in 1D&D, Warlocks can be intelligence-based.
They might be axing that.
Yeah, that's true. That was the best thing they did.
I know. They might be walking back on that one.
Cool. I know. Wizards just released Baldur's Gate 3, the book.
You can't do that in Baldur's Gate 3, though.
Fair. Yeah. I know. They're walking back on everything. So anyway, this isn't a video about that. This is a video about whether Warlocks pair with Wizards, and I don't think they do.
It's a shame. It would be. I kind of feel like part of the reason why Warlocks in 5th edition Classic can't cast with intelligence is because if they could, taking a couple levels of Warlock on a Wizard would be amazing.
Yeah.
But that one element holds it all back. It would be really cool to have that all working together, but you're always going to have to be trading off between intelligence and charisma, and your ability scores are always going to be fighting for those two things. And that's the challenge. In theory, if you had a 16 int and a 16 wisdom, it would be decent, but then you're tanking all your other ability scores to get there, depending on what ability score generation method you're using.
Now, Monty, I rolled for my stats and I got an 18 and everything. So
I mean, the hypothetical character that is an 18 and everything is going to be an amazing character regardless of what multi-classing combo we choose. But we have to be. But I use point buy as the baseline because it asks us to be realistic.
I know.
Yeah.
I think this is the D.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of it's just too convoluted to make it work.
I think that the wizard doesn't love multiclassing.
No, the wizard does not like multiclassing, and we see that very clearly with our community poll.
So up on screen right now, here's the community rankings for the wizard multiclass combinations, and the winner is staying a single-classed wizard.
80% of the community gave staying single class their top pick, but 70% of the community also approved of the Artificer multiclass.
So I do feel like the statement here is, if you're going to play a wizard, you might as well stay a wizard or Artificer. There's like at the very end in brackets, there's or multiclass Artificer.
It's interesting to note that the fighter got very high marks as well.
And the cleric did okay.
And so did the rogue. The sorcerer also got some nods in this. It's interesting to note that people in the community recognize the strength of potentially doing fighter, cleric, or rogue with your wizard. And I think we discussed all of the ways that that could work. You're just going to have to decide what the trade-off is. And I think that that's the biggest... to kind of put a bow on this, I think what the community ranking really demonstrates is that it's a trade-off when you multi-class with the wizard.
Yeah, and the question is not, is this going to be more powerful, but am I going to like the play style that I'm creating by multi-class?
Yes, because at the end of the day, the wizard is a class that gets more powerful as it gets to higher levels, when it starts to get those really powerful spells that really should be class features. The things like contingency and wall of force and simulacrum and demiplanes and wishes and all those really, really juicy 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells. And when you multi-class, you delay your access to those spells. And yes, you might only be able to do one of those spells once or twice per day. Maybe your campaign is only going to get to 10th or 12th level, and it's not going to matter as much. That's the subjectivity of the ranking. Those subjective factors are going to answer the question, is the trade-off worth it?
So if you've played a wizard multi-class and had a lot of fun with it, I'd love to hear about your builds in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible with the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the work that we do here on YouTube, please consider becoming a patron of the show by following the links right down below.
And if you want to see some awesome spell slinging, make sure to check out our live plays in the World of Drakenheim, which airs Tuesday evenings on Twitch. You can find all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we've got plenty more in our tier ranking series right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.